The 513th Galactic Summit opened beneath a cathedral of light. Vornexus Prime's central chamber glimmered with suspended energy threads, each representing a member world's neural link to the Concord's shared thought network. 512 threads burned bright. One, as it had for centuries, remained dark. The Earth seat. High Chancellor Virex Thal floated into the center dais, his 6 crystalline eyes reflecting the holographic glow of alien delegates arranged in a vast spiral. The human seat, he began, voice resonating through the chamber, has remained unclaimed for half a millennium. The Concord cannot wait forever for ghosts. A murmur rippled across the amphitheater, 1,000 languages blended into one uneasy hum. A Mevran delegate fluttered translucent wings. Perhaps we delete their entry, it hissed. A primitive species that burned itself to ash. Why preserve the memory? Virex's gaze drifted to the dark thread again. Because memory, he said slowly, prevents arrogance. Even the smallest flame once burned bright. Silence settled. Then, suddenly, every energy thread in the chamber flickered. A tremor ran through the holographic grid. Communications officers shouted in panic as galactic sensor feeds filled the projection walls. "High Chancellor!" cried a voice from the control dais. Multiple FTL ruptures detected. Sector 09, Outer Rim. Unregistered signatures, thousands of them. The chamber erupted in alarm. Virex turned sharply. "Display them." A galactic map unfolded midair. From the black void at the edge of known space, fractures bloomed, thousands of simultaneous warp openings. Metallic silhouettes poured through, angular, silver-gray hulls bearing a single emblem, a blue and white insignia shaped like a rotating sphere. The human crest. For a moment no one spoke. Even the neural threads pulsed in stunned sync. "Impossible," whispered the Mevran delegate. Earth was silent. Virex's voice trembled. Not silent anymore. Bridge of the UTF Resolute. Flagship of the Terran Vanguard fleet. Admiral Aria Voss stood before a panoramic viewport, her reflection superimposed over the vast starfield and the spectral shimmer of the alien capital world ahead. She had seen battlefields, storms, and the black emptiness of dead worlds, but never this. The Concord's light web shimmered like a living organism, ancient and watching. "Fleet status," she said quietly. "Formation stable," replied Commander Reyes. "All 1,000 ships synced through the quantum relay. Defensive grids active. Transmission channels awaiting clearance." "Any response from the Concord?" "None yet. But, ma'am, our arrival was noticed. Hard to ignore 1,000 warp breaches." Aria allowed herself a faint smile. "Good. We came to be noticed." Her second-in-command shifted uneasily. "Still think they'll welcome us after 5 centuries of silence?" Ilara's eyes stayed on the alien planet. "They don't need to welcome us. They need to remember who we are." Reyes exhaled. "And who are we, Admiral?" "Survivors." Back in the Concord chamber, chaos fractured protocol. Dozens of species spoke at once. Fear, outrage, confusion. Virex struggled to maintain order. "Delegates, maintain composure. We will." "High Chancellor," interrupted a voice from the comm pit. "Incoming transmission on all channels. Origin, Earth Fleet. Patch it through." The projection shifted, the dark human thread igniting for the first time in recorded history. The hologram stabilized into a clear feed, a woman in command uniform, silver trim reflecting starlight. Her tone was calm, measured, precise. "This is Admiral Aria Voss of the United Terran Fleet, representing the people of Earth." The room froze. "For 500 years," she continued, "you held our seat in absence. For that, humanity thanks you. We have returned to claim it." Virex leaned forward. "Admiral Voss, your sudden arrival with an armada is unconventional. The Concord values diplomacy, not intimidation." Aria didn't flinch. "Nor do we seek to intimidate. These ships carry more than weapons. they carry the memory of our silence. We did not vanish. We rebuilt. We endured collapse, war, and solitude. We learned what it meant to stand alone in the dark. Now we return to stand among you, not beneath you. Murmurs spread like wildfire. The Chancellor's tone hardened. Admiral, the Galactic Concord operates through trust. Appearances of militarization. Appearances, she interrupted gently, are often misread by those who've never been alone. Every ship here is a promise. Humanity will never vanish again. Minutes later, in the observation hall behind the dais, Virex stood with his advisors. They came prepared, murmured his intelligence chief. Their technology outpaces even our defensive grid. We cannot afford to provoke them. Virex watched the hovering image of the Terran fleet, silver ships forming precise, geometric phalanxes like a language of power. 5 centuries, he whispered. What did they do in that silence? His aide replied, whatever it was, Chancellor, it made them something new. On board the Resolute, Aria turned from the viewport. Status. All channels stable. Fleet holding position in Concord orbit, Reyes said. Scans show hundreds of vessels tracking us. Weapon locks, shield calibrations, the whole parade. Expected. You think they'll fire? Aria shook her head. No. They fear us too much to misunderstand us that fast. Reyes hesitated. And if they decide fear is safer than negotiation? Then, Aria said softly, we remind them what happens when humanity is underestimated. She walked toward the holographic star map, eyes narrowing on the Concord's core sectors. Activate diplomatic link. Request formal recognition of the Terran presence. Reyes hesitated. You're certain about speaking directly to the Chancellor? If he's the one writing the rules, then yes. It's time he met the species he forgot. The galactic chamber dimmed once more. Alara's image reappeared above the dais, every alien delegate watching. High Chancellor, she began, 500 years ago, you invited us to join your order. We were not ready. We were fractured, lost, searching for meaning. Now we arrive united. Earth stands whole. Virex's expression was unreadable. And the weapons you bring? A safeguard, she replied. Peace built without the ability to defend it is an illusion. We bring what we've earned, discipline, endurance, and a voice that will no longer remain silent. The Chancellor regarded her in silence, 6 crystalline eyes reflecting her image. Admiral Voss, the galaxy will not easily forget your arrival. Perhaps that was your intent. Alara's lips curved slightly. It was. As the transmission faded, Virex turned toward the window overlooking the city sprawl of Vornexus Prime. The night sky glimmered with new constellations, shapes of Terran warships orbiting in perfect formation. The sight filled him with both awe and unease. Prepare a summit, he ordered quietly. For the first time in half a millennium, humanity speaks again. Aria remained at her command post long after communications ended. The bridge lights dimmed, leaving only the reflection of distant stars. She whispered, half to herself, 500 years of silence, and they still think we came here to ask for permission. Reyes turned. Did we? Her gaze never left the stars. No. We came to remind them the galaxy doesn't move forward without us. Outside, 1,000 Terran warships drifted in absolute formation, their hulls catching the faint light of Vornexus Prime. To the watching civilizations, it was the rebirth of a legend long buried, a return of the species that refused to die quietly. Humanity had spoken, and the galaxy would never be the same again. The Galactic Council convened in private for the first time in a century. The chamber's circular walls shimmered with muted light, each representing a world whose future now trembled at humanity's return. The empty center of the room, the debating floor, had never felt so heavy. High Chancellor Virex Thal stood at its heart, hands clasped behind his back, facing the gathered delegations. Every species present carried its own interpretation of fear. The Cerellians whispered through their crystalline mouths, The Korthan clicked mandibles in nervous bursts. The Avanic emissaries folded wings tight, as if preparing for flight. The Terrans have appeared without warning, Virex began, his voice steady but taut. 1,000 ships, unregistered, unaligned, surrounding our capital world. They request recognition. I request caution. A Vothic delegate leaned forward, iridescent eyes narrowing. Caution? They arrive with weapons drawn and speak of unity. That is not diplomacy, it is declaration. Another voice joined from across the circle. And yet they did not fire. The room shifted. It was true. The Terrans had not fired a single shot, despite having enough firepower to erase the capital moon. The silence between arrival and contact carried its own form of pressure. Virex looked up at the holographic image of Earth's fleet hovering above them. Every ship held formation with mechanical precision, each movement exact, deliberate, unervingly human. They waited half a millennium, he said quietly. They can wait longer. We must understand them before we decide what they mean to do. A murmur rippled again, this time softer, agreement mixed with unease. Aboard the UTF Resolute, Admiral Aria Sol stood before the diplomatic hololink. The transmission from the Council paused midair. She studied each alien face in the frozen projection, the curiosity, the suspicion, the fear. They're deliberating, said Commander Reyes, stepping up beside her. Probably arguing whether to treat us as guests or invaders. Both might be accurate, she replied. Reyes frowned. You think they'll welcome us at all? Aria exhaled slowly. Welcome isn't what we came for. Recognition is. She moved to the observation deck. Below, Vornexus Prime's continent-spanning city glowed with impossible geometry, towers curved like waves of light, airways filled with living vessels that glided like transparent fish. Humanity had imagined alien beauty for centuries, but seeing it in motion was still unsettling. 500 years, she murmured. They built wonders, and yet none of them ever came to help when we burned. Reyes glanced at her. You think they knew? Oh, they knew. Our transmissions reached them long before the collapse. They decided isolation was nature's way of cleansing weakness. We became their lesson in abandonment. He hesitated. And now, Aria said, turning back to the viewport, we show them what their lesson created. Inside the chamber, the Council's arguments grew sharper. The Cerelian representative, scales shifting hues with agitation, spoke above the noise. The Terrans were always unstable. We extended contact 5 centuries ago, they never replied. Now they return with machines that outpace ours. This is not coincidence. This is vengeance delayed. Virex's 6 eyes locked on the speaker. You suggest we strike first? I suggest we survive first. The hall's lights dimmed as the Concord security network updated with proximity alert. Dozens of Terran ships had repositioned, forming a defensive shell around the orbital perimeter. Not hostile, just watchful. Yet it was enough to make every delegate pause. Observe their discipline, Virex said quietly. No random motion, no power surges, no aggression. Everything they do is by design. The Vothic delegate hissed. Perhaps that's what makes them dangerous. Aboard the Resolute, Ilara's personal communicator chimed. Transmission incoming, private channel encoded at Concord level, said Reyes. Aria adjusted her console. The hologram resolved into the tall, crystalline form of High Chancellor Virex. His image was sharp, cold, and dignified. Admiral Voss, he said, inclining his head slightly. You wished for dialogue. Consider this your invitation. Aria met his gaze without hesitation. A private meeting? For now. The Council is divided. They need assurance that your intentions are not hostile. I can assure you of that, Chancellor. But assurance and trust are not the same. He studied her silently, the light refracting through his crystalline body like shifting ice. Then tell me, why now? Why return after so long? Why with warships instead of envoys? Ilara's answer came without pause. Because for centuries, no one answered our distress calls. We sent pleas into the dark, and the galaxy ignored them. So we learned to save ourselves. We built weapons because words failed us. We come armed not to threaten, but to make sure we're finally heard. Virex tilted his head. You believe the galaxy owes you? I believe the galaxy forgot us, she replied. And we intend to correct that. The Chancellor's crystalline fingers tapped the air thoughtfully. You speak as if humanity suffered alone. Ilara's expression hardened. Did anyone else endure extinction-level wars on 3 continents while the Concord debated trade tariffs? Did any of you send help? You turned away and labeled us unstable. Perhaps we were. But we survived it. That makes us something new. For a long moment neither spoke. Then Virex said softly, You speak with conviction. But conviction without restraint burns worlds. Ilara gave a faint, almost knowing smile. Then it's fortunate we learned restraint the hard way. The hologram flickered, then vanished. Virex stood alone after the transmission ended. The weight of her words pressed on him more than he expected. 500 years ago, humanity had been fragile, loud, self-destructive. Now their representative spoke with quiet certainty, the tone of those who had seen ruin and refused to yield. He turned to his aide. Prepare the Grand Hall for formal negotiation. Humanity will attend as equals. The aide hesitated. Sir, many oppose this. They fear what the Terrans might demand. Virex looked out toward the stars. Then they should fear more what silence has already cost us. On the Resolute, preparations began. The Council's invitation was brief and filled with coded language, formality masking suspicion. Ilara studied it without expression. Reyes watched her from the console. You realize this could be a trap? It could, she agreed. But if it is, they'll learn we're not as easy to corner as they remember. He smiled faintly. You almost sound like you're enjoying this. She turned toward him, eyes steady. Reyes, I've waited my entire life for this day. Every Terran officer has. We grew up hearing about the time before silence, when humanity was dismissed as reckless children. Today we prove them wrong. He nodded. Then let's make it worth the wait. Hours later, the Resolute's shuttle descended through the shimmering atmosphere of Vornexus Prime. Below, entire skylines shifted as energy currents pulsed through the city's living architecture. Alien crowds gathered on the viewing terraces, recording the arrival of the first human vessel in 500 years. Ilara stood in the shuttle's observation dome, watching the alien capital expand beneath her. They've forgotten what real fear feels like, she said quietly. Reyes adjusted the descent controls. You plan to remind them? I plan to remind them what respect costs. The shuttle broke through the clouds, light glinting off its dark hull as it approached the landing platform of the Galactic Concord. The moment its landing struts touched the luminous surface, the galaxy's silence shattered for the second time in a millennium. Human footsteps echoed across alien stone. And for the first time since the stars had divided civilization, Earth had returned to speak for itself. The Grand Hall of Vornexus Prime was older than most civilizations. Its architecture blended gravity and light, crystal walls suspended in magnetic currents, forming a cathedral that seemed to breathe. When Admiral Ilara Voss entered, flanked by 2 Terran officers, the entire assembly fell silent. The echo of her boots against the polished floor felt heavier than any speech. 500 years of silence had just walked into the room. High Chancellor Virex Thal stood at the head of the circular dais, his crystalline form reflecting the hall's shifting light. Around him, alien representatives filled their floating seats, a living spectrum of life, scaled, feathered, crystalline, mechanical. None looked comfortable. Ilara stopped at the center of the chamber. On behalf of the people of Earth, she said evenly, I thank the Concord for granting audience. Her voice carried across the room, calm but unwavering. Every word landed with purpose. Virex inclined his head. Admiral Voss, humanity's reemergence has shaken the galaxy. We are not your enemies, but neither are we your subordinate. You come armed, unannounced, and unaligned. We seek only understanding. Why return now? Alara met his gaze. Because we are ready now. And because we remember everything you forgot. The hall stirred uneasily. A delegate from the insectoid Corthan clicked its mandibles. Arrogance, it hissed. You arrive with ships and speak of memory. You disappeared for centuries. Alara's eyes shifted to it. We didn't disappear. We survived what no one else would have endured alone. That wasn't arrogance, it was necessity. The chamber's energy shifted again. Virex gestured for quiet. You claim endurance, he said, yet endurance without humility becomes domination. What does Earth want from the Concord? Alara's reply was immediate. A seat. Not as a relic, not as a warning. As equals. The Mevran delegate, wings glimmering like glass, spoke next. Equality is earned through contribution. What could your kind offer after centuries of silence? Alara turned toward the holographic display hovering above the dais. She raised her wrist console, projecting blueprints into the air, massive orbital forges, fusion-bonded infrastructure, planetary shield networks unlike any known design. 500 years of silence wasn't idleness, she said. We built an interstellar network spanning 12 systems. We cured resource collapse, unified under one language of governance, and turned our wars into lessons. We learned to build peace through strength, and we offer that strength to the Concord. Her tone remained level, neither boastful nor pleading. We do not seek to lead. We seek to ensure no world suffers the silence we endured. The chamber quieted. Even the air felt denser. Virex studied her for a long moment. Admiral Voss, your achievements are impressive. But strength has a cost. Those who wield it rarely stay content with equality. Alara smiled faintly. Then we'll be your test case. After all, Chancellor, peace maintained by fear isn't peace. It's paralysis. You've built an order that fears disturbance more than stagnation. We're here to change that. The hall erupted in protest. Dozens of delegates shouted at once, their voices layering into chaos. Words like dangerous, insolent, threat echoed through the chamber. Virex struck his staff to the floor, sending a resonance pulse that silenced the uproar. Enough. He turned to Alara. Your words cut deep, Admiral. But perhaps that's what the galaxy needs, a mirror to its own complacency. She nodded. We didn't come to flatter. We came to remind the galaxy what survival looks like. Outside the hall, the Concord's news grids already blazed with headlines. Humans return from silence. Terran fleet challenges Concord ideals. Warriors or saviors? On the Resolute, the crew watched in tense anticipation. Commander Reyes paced the bridge, eyes fixed on the live feed. They're not taking it well, he muttered. They don't have to, replied Communications Officer Lyra. They just have to listen. Reyes folded his arms. Still, if this turns bad. Then we stand ready, she finished. Every ship in orbit adjusted formation, subtle movements that rippled through the fleet like synchronized breath. No aggression, just presence, a reminder that Earth was no longer the silent, forgotten child of the stars. Back in the hall, the debate reached its peak. The Vothic delegate, tall and mantled in violet plating, pointed a claw at Alara. Your fleet is a weapon. If you truly desire peace, disarm and prove it. Alara didn't hesitate. You mistake power for intent. Our ships are our insurance. Proof that we won't vanish again because others deem us expendable. Her gaze swept the room. Every world here was once fragile. You united because you feared each other. Humanity united because we lost everything. There's a difference. One is self-preservation. The other is rebirth. For a long time, no one spoke. Then Virex said quietly, You speak like someone who's seen extinction. Alara met his eyes. I have. That answer silenced the room more effectively than any order could. Later, in the Chancellor's private chamber overlooking the city, Virex stood with Alara as energy storms rolled across Vornexus Prime's horizon. The city's light reflected against his crystalline form like trapped lightning. "You've unsettled them," he said. "That was unavoidable," she replied. "You've built centuries of peace by suppressing growth. Sooner or later, something had to wake the galaxy up." He regarded her carefully. "And you believe humanity is that catalyst?" "I don't believe," she said softly. "I know." Virex turned to face the vast skyline. "When we invaded Earth 5 centuries ago, we saw potential, but also volatility. You had brilliance, but chaos. It frightened the Council. And so you left us to die," she said. There was no anger in her tone, just fact. Virex's eyes flickered. "Would you have done differently in our place?" "Yes," she said simply. "Because we understand what abandonment costs." The Chancellor's crystalline hands tightened behind his back. "The galaxy is not ready for your kind." "Then it's time it learned," she said. They stood in silence, the hum of the city vibrating through the glass floor beneath them. Finally, Virex turned back. "I will present the vote at dawn. The Council will decide if Earth reclaims its seat. And if they refuse?" His expression hardened. "Then history will repeat itself, one more war born from pride." Alara stepped closer, her voice low but steady. "Not pride. Memory." At dawn, the Galactic Council reconvened. The delegates filed in beneath a sky streaked with violet light. Outside, the Terran fleet glimmered like a constellation reborn. Virex raised his staff. "By Concord law, we vote on Earth's reinstatement." The first lights appeared, some green, some red, flickering across the circle like uncertain stars. One by one, the votes tallied. The outcome hovered in balance. Alara stood motionless. Her expression revealed nothing. Then, the final light pulsed green. "By narrow majority," Virex declared, "Earth is reinstated into the Galactic Concord as an equal member." The hall erupted, not in applause but in stunned murmurs. Alara inclined her head slightly. "Thank you, Chancellor." Virex studied her. "You understand what this means. You will be watched." She smiled faintly. "That's fine. We've always performed best under observation." At dawn, the Galactic Council reconvened. The delegates filed in beneath a sky streaked with violet light. Outside, the Terran fleet glimmered like a constellation reborn. Virex raised his staff. "By Concord law, we vote on Earth's reinstatement." The first lights appeared, some green, some red, flickering across the circle like uncertain stars. One by one, the votes tallied. The outcome hovered in balance. Alara stood motionless. Her expression revealed nothing. Then, the final light pulsed green. "By narrow majority," Virex declared, "Earth is reinstated into the Galactic Concord as an equal member." The hall erupted, not in applause but in stunned murmurs. Alara inclined her head slightly. "Thank you, Chancellor." Virex studied her. "You understand what this means. You will be watched." She smiled faintly. "That's fine. We've always performed best under observation." Hours later, as Alara returned to the Resolute, she stood once more before the viewport. The fleet drifted above the alien world, each vessel reflecting dawnlight like a promise kept. Reyes approached quietly. "It's done. We're in." Alara nodded. "Yes. But this isn't the end." "What is it then?" She looked out at the stars, thousands of them, silent witnesses to humanity's return. "The beginning of accountability," she said. "They'll learn what it means to have us among them again." The stars shimmered on the glass, and in their reflection, Alara's eyes burned with quiet resolve. 500 years of silence had ended. Now humanity's voice would echo through the galaxy, calm, steady, and unforgettable.